because I definitely cannot stand still. Way too much passion with this thing. All right, so Matt said I studied physics, which is true, and I'm big into solving problems. This is kind of my thing. It's what I like to do, like to figure stuff out. And people say, "Oh, you don't use your physics degree." How come? I say I use it every day, actually, because for me, physics is just about solving problems, figuring things out, creating systems. So what I want to share tonight is kind of my kind of way of systemizing having a passionate life. And one of my favorite ways to do this has always been to sit down with somebody, sit down with a friend. I mean, this started out ever since I was, I don't know, early 20s. It was like when somebody had a problem and they wanted to solve something, figure something out in their life, I was like, well, let's sit down. I'd take out a piece of paper and we'd sit down at a table at a restaurant or something, and we'd start asking questions. You know, I wasn't like I had to go like life coaching school and have like the right way to do. I just started asking questions about, well, what's going on in your life? What do you want to do? How can we come up with a system, a strategy to get you more of what you want? And that's still my passion, sitting down with people with a blank piece of paper. For the people in here that know me, my friends, we've done that. For the clients in here, what do I show up with? I show up with a notebook and a pen because I love it. So tonight I want to take you on a journey, imagining you're sitting with me in front of a piece of paper, and I want to take you through that system as best I can without really being able to interact with you, obviously, one-to-one. Funny story, the first time I did this with this piece of paper thing was when I first got to London. I was sitting down with one of the first English guys that I met here. And I was telling him about what I like to do, and I was like, oh, maybe I can do this for a living. Maybe I could just talk to people and help them live their dreams and stuff. These people in America that do this, they get up on stage and they talk about living your dreams and just how to do it, and they get them excited. And he's like, oh yeah, we have some of those here. We call them wankers. And I was American, obviously, and I had just gotten here, so I didn't know what wanker meant. I'm like thinking of my business card with wanker on it. Where would it fit? I'm like thinking about meeting somebody at a party, and I'm John Morgan. What do you do? I'm a wanker. It's like, but after he said, that's okay. They'll just say, oh, he's just an American. They won't call you a wanker, so it'll be fine. But anyway, I pursued this, and it's what I'm doing now, and I love it. And this is exciting because it's not very often that I can just say, live your dreams, and people will come into a room. Because the way you phrase things, some people think, oh, what is this, what is that? So in order to really make my business, I actually work in helping people connect with each other, very specifically in the niche of dating, and men. I work with both men and women. For me, it's a doorway into their lives, really. Because the truth is, it usually is something bigger than that, right? So what is exciting for me is that Matt put up a meetup, a talk, called How to Live a Passionate Life. And he's like, John, come speak. I'm like, oh yeah, cool. I figured 20 people will come out. Send out one email, boom, the thing sold out in 3 days. And then I was like, get a bigger room. He did it. Got to 70 people, 2 days. 100 people. Now there's 100 people in this room right now that are curious and interested in the idea of living a more passionate life. Now that's you know how I said I like sitting down with one person that is interested in that? Now I've got 100 people that are interested in that's exciting for me. Now think about that for a second. There's 100 people that want to live a more passionate life, or at least interested in that. And my first question, though, to make sure we're on the same page, because sometimes words can mean different things to different people, is, what is a passionate life? And I'd just like to throw that out there, and you're going to raise your hand. I'm not going to know because I can't see anything with the light in my eyes, but I'm going to try to see if somebody can answer me, in your mind, in your words, what is a passionate life? Please.
Doing what you love doing.
Doing what you love doing. Okay, cool. Anybody else? Did you all come to find out what a passionate life is? Or do you just know that I can't see you? Because when I duck down, I can see you. Which one is it? Come on, yeah.
Living without fear.
Living without fear. That's good. I like that. What else? We heard some mumbling. What is it?
Yeah, appreciate what you have.
Appreciating what you have. Cool.
Sharing what you have.
Sharing what you have.
Doing something that inspires me every day.
Doing something that inspires you every day. Cool.
Making a difference.
Challenging yourself. Yep.
Making a difference.
Making a difference? Cool. This is all good stuff. Let me twist the question and be a little coachy for a second. How will you know when you're living a passionate life? Please.
You don't come to talks like this one?
Yeah, you don't come to talks like this anymore. Bunch of losers! How else? You feel what? You're feeling fulfilled. With no regrets. I like that. I'm going to stop there and hold on to that. You're feeling fulfilled. And I'll come back to that later. I think that's cool. And the next question I like to ask, which is kind of an interesting thing to think about, is why? do you want to live a passionate life? You know? And I'm not going to ask you to answer because everybody's answer is going to be a little different. It's going to be unique to each of you. But I think this feeling fulfilled is part of it. When I was 23 around there, I had just finished university. And I was just hanging out with my friends at dinner one night. We're sitting at actually TGI Fridays in America. There's like a million of them. We're just having some dinner. And I was sitting there. I was like, I can't really see out of my eye. It's kind of weird. And over the next few days, I went blind in my left eye, completely blind. I went to the doctor. They didn't know what it was. I went to an optometrist. She didn't know what it was. Sent me to an ophthalmologist. He's like, maybe you should see a neurologist. I went to a neurologist. They put me in an MRI. They scanned my brain. They said, oh, shit, you've covered in spots. You have lesions all over your brain. You have multiple sclerosis. And I was like, what's that? And they were like, well, it's a disease where your immune system gets confused and it thinks your nervous system is bad for you and it attacks it. And as it does that, it damages the signals, damages the nerves, and your signals can't pass through anymore. I said, ooh, that's like freaking me out. What does that mean? Well, people live their whole lives with just one episode and it never bothers them again. So this could be the blindness will go away and you'll be fine and that's it. Or sometimes people wake up the next day paralyzed and they die. So you don't know. So that was like, obviously, a holy shit moment, right? And so obviously it stressed me out. Over the next week, I was taking steroids and the blindness went away. My vision came back. It's almost perfect now. And over that week, I went from being really scared to really excited. I just flipped it. And the way I did it is I realized that, like, you know what? My eye's fine again. I'm healthy. I'm strong. I'm happy. So this disease that could be something maybe the next day is no different than the disease that every single one of you guys in here have right now, and girls, which is called mortality. Right? Mortality. And I think this is connected to this idea of feeling fulfilled. Mark Twain's got that quote. He said, in 20 years from now, you'll be more disappointed by the things you didn't do than by the things you did do. Right? So for me, living a passionate life, my reason is because I want to make sure that when I die, I know that my life wasn't wasted. And the way I know that it wasn't wasted is I know that I really lived. I really lived. Right? And how do I know if I really lived? I feel fulfilled. Because that's how we know if we're living, we're feeling. So that's my reason. And I'm sure everybody's got a reason. And they might not be aware of it, but take some time and think about it. Why do I want a passionate life? Because from there comes some motivation that's going to be really useful for you, especially later, and as I discuss how to make this happen. If I were to sit down with you, if we were to sit face to face, okay? The first thing that I would ask you, we're going to come up with a strategy now to have a more passionate life. I'd say, so what do you do? Tell me about your life. What do you like to do? And you might say, like, well, obviously I work. I'm working like 50, 60 hours. And, after work, sometimes I go out to the pub with my friends and, once in a while go out to eat and stuff like that. And, try to get to the gym at least once a week, maybe twice. And, sometimes I'll go to a game. Okay. So what else? What else do you like to do? Well, I kind of wanted to, there was this course I wanted to take in this thing one time. I said, okay. Well, let me give you an example about my life and where I kind of have passions. A couple of my passions, just to kind of give you an example of what I'm kind of talking about. When I first, when I was about 16 or so, I got my first guitar. And I'll put this here for a second so I can pretend I'm playing the guitar. I got my first guitar. And when I first got it, it was just something I was interested in, right? I was like, I took guitar lessons, and the first thing I learned to play was just like one pick on one string. It was like dun 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 dun. Dun 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 dun. So it started from like this clunky picking into that Come As You Are Nirvana song, right? And that was like, oh wow, that's exciting. And then from there it became strumming and learning chords, and that became more exciting. And then from the chords became riffs and songs, and then I started singing as well and writing lyrics and started a band, and then created an album and went on tour. And I got passionate about playing the guitar, right? And that's the kind of passion that I considered a passion in depth. I went deeper and deeper and deeper into playing the guitar and became passionate about it. Another example, I studied in Sydney. It was the first time I really left America, and it opened my eyes in so many ways. I mean, you mean like the world's not like it is and looks like on American TV? Wow. That's amazing. So I got interested in traveling, and I went again while I was at uni. I went to Italy for a couple of weeks, wrote a story about it, and then it started to become more interesting to me. And then as I got older and I made some cash investing in property, I decided, you know what, I just got to do this because I love it. And I started traveling, and I bought a one-way ticket to Malaysia, and I didn't know how long it was going to last. It lasted 3 years of traveling because I was so passionate about, not about going deeper, but in variety, in breadth, in width, going wider, going do all different things. Every time I had a new experience, a different experience, I wanted more new experiences and different, whether it was going into Malaysia and seeing the festival of the Hindus putting spears through their faces, or going to concentration camps, or going to all these different kinds of places just to expand my mind, expand my experiences. And I got passionate about traveling, but in breadth, not in depth. So there's different kinds of passion. Everybody's going to have their own balance. It's going to be different for everyone, but I just wanted to give you some examples. You know what I'm saying? You're starting to get what I'm talking about? And you might be looking at me and be like, oh yeah, now I get it. I see what you're talking about, but I just don't know what my passion is. How do I find my passion? Has anybody ever asked themselves, how do you find your passion? Yeah, okay, cool. All right, how many of you believe in love at first sight? Raise your hand if you believe in love at first sight. Okay, cool. Well, I've got some bad news for you guys. It's a fairy tale. If it ever happens, it's just serendipity. It's just chance. Okay? I don't think it's real. I mean, what is it like? Do you think you're going to be going at the bookstore, like looking through a book someday, and you'll be like, just, hey, what's up, man? I'm just searching for my passion. And just like, holy there it is. I found my passion. It's on page 78 in this book. No, that's not how it works. You don't find your passion. The truth is that passions are grown, not discovered. Passions are grown, not discovered. Just like love, you know? You don't discover love, you fall into love. So what I want to suggest is you guys start thinking about falling into passion. Now, how do you do that? That's the obvious next question. Well, okay, I get it. I believe that. That makes sense. But how do I fall into passion? Well, you can't force love. You can't force passion. It's the same thing. But what can you do? Well, obviously, if you want to fall in love, you can't sit at home all day and not go meet people, right? You're not going to fall in love that way. You've got to be around people. So you can set yourself up. Give it some really good odds. So you can set yourself up for passion. Which brings us back to the first question I asked. Notice I didn't ask you, what are your passions? I asked you, what do you like to do? What are your interests? Because that's where it begins. And the things that you like to do or would like to do that you're not doing now, that's the path to falling into passion. But you need to start. Which brings us to the next typical problem that comes up when we have this. So what I would do here is I'd have you list out 10 things, like what I like to do, at least 10 things, and you'd list them out. And the next problem that would come up is be like, wow, that's great, I can see it, but I know, I'm just not sure if I could get going doing that stuff. And I'd say, well, I'm going to talk to you about that, but hold on, let me teach you one more thing first about this, to give you a little bit head start, because you have these 10 things you're interested in, but I want to make sure that you have some clarity around which ones could actually develop into passion. So I kind of have this formula, this idea that I have about the 3 factors for the types of activities, the things you do that make them something that you could be passionate about. Okay? The first one, the first factor, the thing that needs to exist for you, is based around this idea that when I was a little kid, I remember when I used to want to shovel snow or something like that. I'd be like, when I was really little, I'd be shoveling snow with my dad. I'd be like driving the snow shovel around, like drawing paths and stuff, figure eights. My dad would be like, no, do it this way, straight like that. And I would do it, but it wouldn't be as fun anymore. Wouldn't be as excited about it. So I became less passionate about it. I also used to build websites for bands when I was at university. I was playing in bands and it was fun. I'd stay up till 3 in the morning, writing code, nerding, geeking out, all this kind of stuff. And it was fun. I was passionate about that. But then I started doing it for clients and I had to have it done by a certain date and all these kinds of things. And it wasn't as fun anymore. What happened? What changed in those things? What made it go from being fun to not fun? Any ideas? I'm going to tell you, don't worry. What?
Responsibility.
Yeah, responsibility, that's kind of it. Freedom, that's the word. Freedom was taken away. So in order to be passionate about something, you have to feel free to do it. When I was in my band playing, there was no way I would have been passionate about it if I didn't have the choice of who was in the band with. I was passionate about travel photography, but there's no way if I had to sit in a room and take pictures of some crying kid, and I wouldn't have been passionate about that. because I had the freedom to decide how I did the photography and who I was in the band with. So, and I don't want to get you hung up on this idea where, oh, I have to be free by some external standard. No, this is about perceived freedom. As Marcus was talking about perception, right? As long as you perceive it to feel free. So what I'd say is go through that list of 10 things, put an F next to the ones where you feel like you could do it and feel free. Free to do it. However it feels free to you. Second one, letter G. You're going to put a G next to each one. What is that? What about, who's here had a job that they liked in the beginning, even like think back to like maybe when you're a bartender or a waiter or like whatever, working in retail, a job you liked in the beginning, but then after a while it got boring. Anybody ever have that? Yeah, okay. What happened there? What happened?
Couldn't grow.
It got stale. Couldn't grow. Did you look at my notes? Shit. No more answering my questions. So yeah, you didn't grow. After a while, you're growing in the beginning because you're learning a new job, and then you hit a ceiling. And you can't grow anymore. Passion turns off. The moment you stop growing, you stop having access to passion. Because passion depends on growth. You need to be improving just enough to keep you moving forward and still have that allure, that desire, that the belief that you can actually do better. So I'd say put a G next to all the things that you can, all the things that you listed that you like to do. Which ones will satisfy me, have infinite potential for growth? Because I don't want to hit a ceiling. I want to be able to keep growing. The third one. When I was when I stopped traveling, it was in the end of the third year, I was living in a tent and cycling my bike. I had started in the northwest corner of the United States, and I cycled the Pacific coast. And I was sitting on a beach in LA watching the sunset, and I was just about to cross into Mexico because I was headed to South America. And I was sitting there, and I was like, I've been traveling for 3 years. I'm living my dream. I'm growing. I'm free, and something's missing. And I was like, what a dick I am. Like, I'm living the dream and I'm still not satisfied. Something's wrong with me. I didn't know what it was, but I figured it out. And I'll give you a hint. If this roof caved in right now, I think the first thing that we would all think about, the first thing would be is like, am I okay? Am I okay, right? But what's the second thing instantly that you'd think about? Somebody tell me.
Your loved ones,
The people.
your family.
Okay, but you're okay, right? So the next thing you think about, what? The people around you, the guy next to you. I'm okay, are you okay? Boom, instantly. The second you know you're okay, you worry about if they're okay. And I think this is a core driver inside of us. And Marcus talked about this giving thing, about altruism, right? And this is not only part of fulfilling you in life, but this is part of passion. And the thing that kept popping into my head, I didn't know why at the time, was like I kept thinking about this library I was raising money to build for kids in Cambodia. And I was like, I don't know what, but I have to stop traveling and do something that has to do with this or something like that. I had the sense that contribution, letter C, contribution was a necessary component to keep me fulfilled. And I've discovered since then, not only is it true in fulfillment, but it's true in keeping me passionate. To believe, for me to perceive that what I'm doing is bigger than me, that it has a contribution, an added benefit, something for the greater good. Again, it's about our perceptions, right? Because that's where it works from. So put a C next to all the ones that you think give you a sense of contribution. And it's going to be different for everyone. F, G, C. And we do that, and you look at it, and you'd be like, oh, I get it. I can really see how these things that I would like to do could actually turn into passions if I was actually able to do them. But yeah. Man, like I just know myself. Like I don't know. I know how do I get the motivation to do it? Does anybody ever wonder that? To start doing this stuff? Yeah. Okay. Just nod like this. Nobody can see you. So let me talk to you about motivation. Some of my favorite topics. Some of my top tips. First of all, this idea of motivation. It's interesting because passion is a kind of motivation. I call it perpetual motivation. Because passion is the kind of motivation where you just feel this energy within and it keeps you to doing the thing. You don't have to have the carrot and the stick anymore because you have this motivation from within. The reason I haven't had an alarm clock in 10 years is because I wake up so excited each day. I don't need an alarm clock because I'm excited to get up. And I'm happy to say that because it comes from within. It's that passion. It's that feeling. You know when you were a kid and you had like going on holiday or something like that and you just couldn't sleep and you woke up in the morning because you just know the day's about to start? That's how passion is. That's how passion works. So perpetual motivation, that's what we want. But You don't have it right now, or don't have as much as you want. How do you get there? When I was 16, I had a pickup truck, my first car, and it was like a 4-speed manual shift, and after about a month, the starter didn't work. The car would run fine, but the starter didn't work, so what I had to do is every time I parked it, I had to make sure I parked it on flat or either downhill, and I'd have to open the door, and I'd have to push the thing by myself, push it until I could get it going enough, and then I'd jump inside, pop the clutch, put the thing in gear, and then boom, it would start up. And it would run. It would run fine. It would run and run and run and run and run. But I had to do something manual. I had to put in some extra force in the beginning to get me to that point of perpetual motivation, to get me to the point of passion. So you need raw, external motivation strategies to get you doing the things that you like to do. Some top tips on that. One of the questions that I think we might ask ourselves, or either unconsciously or we should be, is like, why do I not do the things that I want to do? Isn't that weird? You didn't really think about that? Why do I want to do this, why am I not doing it? Well, my friend James tells me, James helps a lot of people make changes and get motivated in their life, and he tells me that the amygdala, the part of your brain that creates your emotional drive, that sends signals to the rest of your brain to do or not do, is 75% dedicated to avoiding pain, and 25% dedicated, is about right, seeking pleasure. Which means that most of your brain is working hard to keep you safe, and a little bit of your brain is working hard to make you feel good. So it's been your body's job, the human body's job and brain's job for, I don't know, however many years human brains have existed to just keep you safe. And now all of a sudden we have all these new things in the world, these things that we want, more stuff that we could want and have than things that are dangerous, but our brain's not adapted to that yet, so we're stuck here, staying safe. And it creates this kind of inertia. And you have to overcome that in order to get moving. So a few tips for you on that. Stuff you may have heard before and some stuff that you haven't heard, I'm almost positive. The first thing is, again, back to Marcus's point, a lot of overlap, but I think it's a good thing because his points are really solid. This idea of perception. Because think about it for a second. Your brain's trying to keep you safe based on how you perceive the risk. And the risk of the situation is just some ideas that you have. It's based on your perception, which comes from your perspective. My friend Mark, back home, he's got this cool idea that he calls reverse role models. I have a lot of people that come ask me sometimes, like, well, how'd you go off and travel the world and do this and do that? I really want to do it, but my parents just don't think it's a good idea. Or my friends think it's really irresponsible. I have this career and stuff like that. And I always ask them, I say, let me ask you something. The people that are telling you not to do the thing that you want to do, would you like to have the life that they have? Oh, no. Well, you have to remember and realize that the advice they give comes from what they know is to be the safe thing, which is going to lead to their life. So if you don't want their life, you need to do what they're telling you not to do. Reverse role model. Think about your perceptions. Think about how your perceptions are causing your fear, because the fear is just an idea. There's no cliff that you're about to fall off. There's something bigger. It's something more complex than that. So it's about undoing your perceptions, digging deep, figuring out what that is. Second thing you can do, besides looking at the fear in a different way, is realizing a truth about fearlessness. And that's a big word, and it's a little bit of a scary word sometimes, but I have this belief that your more passionate life exists always outside of your comfort zone, right? Always. It has to. So instead of looking at fear as a stop sign, what if you looked at fear as a signpost in the direction of your more passionate life? It's still going to feel like it feels, but if you feel it, that means you're thinking about it. If you're thinking about it, that means you care about it. If you care about it, you got to do it. So that you're feeling fulfilled, so you're living, you're really living. What's the third one? So we talked about fear, looking at fear in a different way. Using fear as a signpost. And then what it really comes down to, you're still going to have that gut feeling, right? So you have to be able to move yourself beyond it. You need to turn that desire into what I call a need strength desire. You need to need it. Because until you need it, you're not going to do it. And that also comes down to perception. And that is about the why. Remember I asked you, why do you want to live a more passionate life? Coming up with a reason why that's big enough to move you, that creates emotion, because emotion causes motion. Big enough to move you. And obviously I can't do that here. If we were working one-to-one, I'd go down and I'd figure out what your reason is, because everyone's different. We'd create it in such a way that it makes you feel and pushes you forward. There's other people in this room that can help you. James can help you. Marcus can help you. Matt can help you. Figure out what's your reason and get it firing you up to push you forward and getting you moving. So those are kind of 3 tips, right, on getting the truck going so you can jump in and get that perpetual motivation. But I know there's a piece missing, because I know that you've all gotten excited before. You've come to gotten really excited about something, got the motivation, you started, but then after a while of going to the gym, it just dies off and you stop going. Right? What's that about? I thought you said, oh, I need to do this, then the truck would be going. Yeah, but what's that about? In Berlin, they're putting people inside an MRI machine, right? Putting their heads in there, and they're putting a box in each of their hands. And each box has a button on it. And all you have to do, this is the most simple experiment ever, all you have to do is just push a button. Decide, I'm going to push this button, and then push it. Then decide, I'm going to push that button, and then push it. The moment you decide, you push. And there's a guy sitting in the room, and he's looking at a computer screen, and he's looking at your brain, and he's looking at when you push the buttons, and it's on a timeline, and he's looking at certain areas of your brain that light up. And he can see a correlation, a definitive correlation between certain areas of your brain lighting up and certain buttons being pushed. So this area lights up when you push the left, that area when you push the right, right? So they can see the correlation. What's crazy is the correlation, there's a gap in time. He can see 6 seconds before you decide and push the button. 6 seconds! So what does that mean? No, I'm not going to stand here and say that it means you don't have any free will. It's just, well, the idea is that your decision process is deeper than your conscious thought. That the thoughts you think you're having are actually way bigger than that. And they're resulting from your existing neurological patterns. The things that you do habitually as well. So I want to give you an example of this. Everybody clasp your fingers together like this. Your hands together. Yeah? Interlace your fingers. Okay, notice which thumb is on top. Yeah? Now I'm going to have you separate and then reclasp, but have it the other thumb on top this time, so all your fingers switch by one. You got it? Does that feel a little bit awkward? Yeah, because you're used to it the other way. Now I'm going to count to 60. And every time you're going to open and clasp back together. And each time you clasp back together, squeeze. We're going to do it 60 times. Ready?
Yeah.
You're going to do it the awkward way every time. Sorry, I missed that part. The awkward way every time. All right? 60 times. Let's start over. 1, 2, squeeze. 3, 4, 5, 55, 56, 57, 58, 59, 60. Separate your hands and just put them together however you want. How did it go that time? Yeah, it's not going to be the same for everyone, right? How does it feel? Does the new way feel a little bit more comfortable than before? Yeah. And that's, repetition. It creates new neurology in your brain. Something that felt awkward a minute ago now starts to feel normal. And obviously this will fade back. You've got to do it more times over time to make a real permanent change. But that's what's got to happen as well. You've got to build up habits. You're going to use motivation to get you going. And you got to, each time that starts to wane, you've got to use motivation to keep you going and keep going until you get a habit. It becomes habitual going to the gym. And then when you have that consistency and commitment, that habit opens up the possibility through growth, freedom, and contribution to forge a new passion. And if I could sit down with all you guys right now, obviously I would, and go through that, but I can't. But I have 3 possibilities for you. The first is there's a piece of paper that has feedback stuff on it. There's a little checkbox and email slot. Put your email in there. On Monday, I'll send you a worksheet that lays out this entire plan and method. So you can sit down by yourself and you can do this. And I'd like to do it. And if you do it, send it to me because I'd love to read it. Yeah? The second option is I'm going to take 10 people and sit down with them in private session and go through this and help you plan out your passionate life. I'm doing it at 1/3 the normal cost. And exactly the first 10 people that talks to Faye, the pretty blonde there in the back, gets to sign up for that. And the third thing is obviously I do coaching and mentoring, and if anybody is really interested in working with me and developing a more passionate life or anything, come talk to me. We can talk about that as well. But whatever happens, whether you just go and you download that thing or we end up working together, my hope is that you leave with your piece of paper that has all these kind of words and lines and circles and stuff drawn on it that lays out this plan for your more passionate life. And you go off in the world and you start doing new things. And you do a little bit more new things, and you start to create habits, and you're breaking through fears, and you're pushing yourself, and you're understanding yourself better. And then a few months go by, or maybe a few years, and I bump into you someday, somewhere. And I say, hey, how you been? How you been since the talk? And you start talking to me, and you start telling me about your life. You start telling me what you've been up to. And you start talking about this thing and that thing, and you don't even realize how much you're talking because you're going on and on and on, modestly but excitedly, and like a kid who's just come back on the beach with a seashell to show his mom and dad how excited he is. You're bringing your whole world to me and talking to me about it with so much energy, and I stop you and I say, wow, you really live a passionate life. And you stop for a second and you think, wow, and you kind of look surprised, but you think about it and you say, yeah, I guess I do. Thank you.